Today I want to share some final thoughts on the Anbernic RG35XX. We did an unboxing on the channel back in March, but it was always my intention to come back and do a proper review after I had had some time with it. Well, here we are, and I've had lots of time with it. I've spent a ton of time with this thing. I've tried out different firmware and a bunch of games, and I have some things to say. As a quick recap, this is Anbernic's latest budget handheld, starting at about $56 US. I ordered mine directly from Anbernic, and after shipping, the total cost came out to $67.99 US. It took a few weeks to arrive in the mail here in California. You can also find these on Amazon now for around $80 with a couple of bonuses and much faster shipping. Is it worth $80 though? Heck, is it worth $68? Maybe. Let's talk about it. First of all, I love this little thing. It does everything it claims to do, and even more once you change the firmware. It's a fairly low-powered device, but it has a solid build quality. All it promises to do is play PS1 games and lower, and I can confirm it does exactly that perfectly. PS1 games run fine, as do all the 16-bit consoles and older arcade games. I wasn't too sure about the CPS 3 initially, but as you can see here, it's running Street Fighter 3 Third Strike smoothly, and I have no issue pulling off those special moves with the D-pad. The build quality is really nice on this thing. You've got a sharp 3.5-inch IPS screen at 480p with adjustable brightness and some great viewing angles. Check that out. You've got your 4 standard face buttons, a menu button, select and start, and the D-pad, which I just mentioned, which is pretty good. On the back we have the L1, R1, L2, R2. They're all easy to reach, although they stick out a little bit too much for my liking, and that's probably my only complaint here. On the top you've got an HDMI output so you can connect to a TV or monitor and play games on the big screen. On the bottom we have a USB Type-C port and a headphone jack. On the right you have your power button, reset button, and 2 micro SD card slots for storage. And finally on the left we have our volume buttons. You've also got built-in rumble and a rechargeable battery that's supposed to last for 5 hours. To be honest, I've never counted or kept track of how long the battery lasted. 5 hours seems somewhat reasonable depending on what games you're playing, which operating system you're using. Are you using rumble? Do you have any external devices connected? I assume there are many variables, but I probably got at least a few hours out of a charge. I never let it die on me, I just kind of charge it here and there when I'm not using it. But overall I'm very pleased with how solid this thing feels. The last time I bought a $60 handheld was a few years ago when I picked up the RK2020 from what is now Powkitty. The performance was impressive for the price, but the build felt very cheap and flimsy. It had hardware issues from the start, and after just a bit of slight use, it broke. But I don't imagine this thing breaking anytime soon. It feels very high quality in comparison. I expect to be able to enjoy this thing for a long time, or at least until some other new and shiny thing steals my attention. Out of the box you got support for only 16 systems, but with some custom firmware you can add compatibility for dozens more. The best option out there right now is GarlicOS, which you can get for free at the link below. This adds a ton of amazing features and emulators for about 70 platforms. You still won't be running anything more advanced than the PS1, but there are tons of great legacy systems you can enjoy on this thing. For example, Sega CD, which wasn't on the stock firmware. GarlicOS is a very fast, lightweight, minimalistic operating system. The boot times are quick, it's very easy to use, and it gives you many more options to work with. My favorite feature is the automatic save states whenever you exit a game or turn off the handheld. You can exit a game, then go back to it 10 years from now and it'll still open right back up to where you left off. I can't stress how great this feature is for a handheld that you will likely be picking up and playing on the go for a few minutes at a time. You also have fast forward and slow motion functions that can be easily toggled with hotkeys. This threw me off at first. I couldn't figure out why games that should have been working were running so slow, but it was my fault, I had slow motion on. The fast forward function is actually one that I've been using quite often to get through long unskippable cutscenes and dialogues. It's very handy to have, a very welcome feature. The only thing I don't love about GarlicOS is the icons. Scrolling through consoles, you see a picture of its corresponding controller with no text. Or in the case of arcade systems, you have just a picture of an arcade cabinet with no text. So If you have multiple arcade cabinets, it can be hard to tell which one is MAME, which one is FBA, which one is Capcom CPS 1, 2, or 3. And when it comes to the console icons, you have instances like the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD where the controllers look the same. So you just kind of have to get used to where each one is placed within the listing. You can change this out, you can customize the icons yourself and make them look however you want. I've just been too lazy to do so, and I've gotten used to it. If you're looking for something a little bit more attractive that can potentially support even more consoles, then you might be interested to know that there's a Batocera build for this thing now. Keep in mind it's still in its early alpha stages, so it might get better over time, but unfortunately I haven't had the best experience with it myself. Sure, the front end looks nice, just like anything that's based on Emulation Station. You can add images and video snaps to the menus, and it all looks very cool, but it comes at a cost. The cost is much longer boot times when you turn on the device. It takes so much longer to boot up than with GarlicOS, it's just crazy. And again, for handheld gaming, a snappy experience is kind of key. Batocera also adds the possibility of playing higher end games like N64 and Dreamcast, but they're still severely limited by the hardware on this device. I couldn't get any N64 games to load at all, due, it sounds like, to the limited amount of RAM we're working with. I got exactly one Dreamcast game to work at a smooth speed, and that game was Choo Choo Rocket. However, when I was trying to get footage for the video, I couldn't get it to work at all. I kept having issues with my BIOS files not being found, and again, I'm sure this is my fault, but I just had enough after messing around with it for so long. Ultimately, the speed and convenience of GarlicOS easily earns its spot in my microSD card. It might have been cool to see some higher end stuff running on this device, but it's going to be very limited. This thing just wasn't made to support that stuff, which brings me back to the point I mentioned earlier. This thing is perfect for playing PS1 games and below. That's all it was intended to do in the first place, and that's all I ever expected from it. No, it doesn't have analog sticks, but unless you're dead set on playing Ape Escape, or better yet, Ori no Ryori, this shouldn't be an issue. The D-pad will suffice for 99% of the games you could throw on it. With all that being said, is the Anbernic RG35XX worth buying? In my case, yes, it's exactly what I thought it would be, what I hoped it would be, and I've gotten a ton of enjoyment out of it. But it depends on what you're looking for. Are you happy playing only games up to PS1? Do you like the form factor? What's your budget? There are so many other handhelds coming out all the time, I wouldn't spend more than $70 on this one. If you want to spend a little more, you could get something that plays Dreamcast, N64, heck even GameCube, PS2, and Wii in some cases. But sometimes less is more. Now, I wasn't looking to spend a lot of money, I was happy enough with my 8, 16, and 32-bit games. I just wanted something that was affordable, but wouldn't break on me immediately like that old Powkitty thing. For what it is, I think it's great. Really good quality hardware with a lower end chipset, made so much better with GarlicOS. It's great to have sitting on your desk or by your bed for some quick gaming sessions when you have a few minutes to kill. You can throw it in your bag or possibly your pocket and take it on the go. And it's also comfortable enough to play for hours at a time. The other night I was playing Bonk's Adventure on the Game Boy and I was like, I just finished the whole game. I did not expect that to happen. Anyways, like I say, I've gotten a ton of enjoyment out of mine and I think it was well worth what I paid for it. But it all depends on your budget and preferences. If you'd like to get your own RG35XX, I'll throw an affiliate link down below. I appreciate your support of the channel. Thanks so much for watching today. I will see you next time.